What is up? And welcome to the Dynasty Gumbo special edition here, live on the DLF YouTube channel. I am your host at Calvin and Hobby, Cal Shoemaker, and I'm excited to be joined by some really awesome, amazing guests. My brother from Louisiana here, and from upstate New York, we got Michelle's younger brother, Adam Pfeiffer. Excited for you to join us too. But before we get into that, just really quick, we got the draft coming up. So just right around the corner. Lots of talk, obviously, about the draft. I've been listening to these guys show all kind of incredible draft coverage everywhere. So I thought we'd try to have a little bit of fun today. And we're going to play a little game where we're going to play name that prospect or guess that prospect. I'm going to try to stump these guys with some random facts about some of the names that you know, and maybe some of the guys we haven't talked about enough. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce, without further ado, right here below me, Mr. Adam Pfeiffer. I started looking. You have been doing this since you were 19 years old, which is incredible.
Yes, only.
And that wasn't that long ago. But don't underestimate. He's still forgotten way more about the industry and prospects and all than most of us will ever learn. So I appreciate you joining me, Adam. How are you? Where can we find you? And tell everybody what you're working on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. So like you said, me and D-Bro doing the Fade the Chalk podcast. We're ripping out multiple episodes every single week. And all my work can be found at FTN Fantasy. I'm doing it's kind of a crazy time right now because I'm doing the draft stuff. Obviously, free agency just kind of passed, so doing football, but I'm also doing basketball. But yeah, we're going to talk about football, obviously, but there's a ton of content for any sport you can think of. But yeah, all my stuff can be found at FTN Fantasy, FTN Daily, FTN Bets. And me and D-Bro doing the Fade the Chalk podcast multiple times a week. Prospect profiles right now. It's been a lot of fun.
And of course, right over here to my, let's see, directions are hard on StreamYard. I got Derek Brown, my Louisiana native brother right here. I'm excited that you're joining me. Glad to be on a pod with you again, or on a live stream with you again. But look, he's not just a Dynasty guy. This is an FSWA DFS Writer of the Year nominated.
Gosh, you're going to bring that up.
Right here. Derek Brown joining us. We're honored to have you.
I can't believe you're bringing that up off the top. I mean, good Lord, that's going to follow me everywhere. Dude, this is going to be a fantastic show. I'm excited, obviously, to hop on with you for all three of us to be doing this. It's a good time of the year, man. I mean, we're seeing all kinds of hot takes being thrown out on social media because people are just running out of shit to talk about right now. So we got to throw something against the wall. So really enjoying this time of the year, man. I mean, we got NFL draft. We got all these prospects to talk about. Other sports are just reeling right now. So like Adam's talking about, tons of content all through FTN, whether you're doing betting, whether you're doing basketball, all kinds of stuff, or you're going for draft props, man. Jeff Ratcliffe just dropped his rookie guide, so over 100 and I think 50 players, Adam, broken down, all of the tiers, all ranked. That is live. Our full access just went live for FTN, so all things football, whether you want betting, you want DFS, because Adam and I, we're going through all these prospects right now. We switch over to the in-season stuff, so we're covering a tiny bit of Dynasty, good bit of redraft, and we really, really hit the DFS part really hard at the end of the week. We go game by game, and that episode, oh, dear God, for as long as, sometimes I ramble. Shit, we talk maybe 2 hours sometimes. Usually it's about an hour and a half, but we go through every single game for that week.
If the Bills are on the slate and if Marvin.
Oh, God, yeah. And then you can't shut up talking about Josh Allen for 13 minutes a freaking clip.
Yeah.
Or I'm just giving all of my Matt Ryan hate, which apparently that was all out on Twitter today. So, Captain Shit Pants himself.
Really important question right off the top from Bob Gilchrist here. Is that Rafael Nadal down there at the bottom?
Headband swag all the time, man.
It might be. It might be.
I wish I was as talented.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you been sitting in the same room? I guess that's the biggest question that we need to ask here. But
no. There's an age difference. I mean, Adam just can you vote now, Adam? Is that about right? No?
Not yet. Pretty soon, hopefully.
Can you rent a car?
I thought you were gonna ask, can I read?
Look, I'm from Louisiana. We can't say anything about.
Don't go there. Don't go there. No, we're not going to talk about that. No, I get everybody to transcribe things for me. Anyway, dude, this is going to be ridiculous. I can already tell.
If you are watching this live, don't be afraid. Step in, say hi, make comments like Bob here. We like to hear that. We can be a little insecure. It's okay. We feel better when you say hi to us in the comments. So go ahead, say hi. If you have any questions for these guys, anything as we get into our game in just a little bit, feel free to make your guesses in the comments and things like that as well. So be a part of what we're doing. Excited that you're here. And honestly, we're having fun. These guys are really smart. They know what they're talking about. You'll definitely learn something. I'm going to try and pull some information out of them. And but look, we're brought to you by Dynasty League Football. These guys are doing a lot of great things over there. Fade the noise, fade the chalk. Dynasty League Football is doing a lot of great things too. So if you are not subscribed to DLF, fix that mistake. We have amazing things, amazing content, amazing writers, lots of great tools, lots of data behind the scenes, ADP and information. Like, honestly, if you're competing in Dynasty, you need to be a premium Dynasty League Football subscriber. So fix that mistake. Go ahead and join. And yeah, absolutely.
Cal, can I throw something in here? I'm actually subbed to DLF, and I think that we're talking about this. It is worth it for the ADP alone. Like, that sub will pay for itself. If you're into Dynasty right now, I've been utilizing it for articles on our site. I reference it all the time. So I'm just going to give you another little push that it is definitely worth the cost.
Definitely appreciate you saying that. So, and also Jordan, no, nobody learns anything from me. Don't worry. I know my role in these, and it's trying to bring on smart people like Derek and Adam, and Jordan too. Jordan's a really smart guy as well. He's good at DFS. That might be a guy to hook up with right there, Derek. Okay, so I want to get to know you guys a little bit. Adam, I want to start with you. So I told you before the show, I did a little bit of internet sleuthing. I was digging around a little bit on YouTube and whatnot, and I found a Google Hangout on YouTube from 2014 where you were expressing your love for TJ Yeldon.
Oh, man.
Okay. And I know you're a Bills fan, so it made me think about the playoffs this last year. And it made me think, like, on the one hand, you were watching your team in the playoffs, and you got to see your guy, TJ Yeldon, which had to be, like, a little surreal. But at the same time, you were also watching your playoff team give meaningful snaps to TJ Yeldon in the year 2020. So, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I love TJ Yeldon coming out, man. Wow. No, but in the whole Buffalo Bills run last year was, look, I mean, I wasn't really old enough for the mid 90s Bills, the Super Bowl run. So my brother's a Bills fan. We were all born in upstate New York. There in my old house, there's a hole in the wall from the Music City Miracle play still to this day. Ooh. So, but but for me, it was the most fun I've ever had as a Bills fan. Not just because of how good the team was as a collective unit, but the fact that, like, for the first time in since Jim Kelly, this team has the answer at quarterback, and it just kind of ties everything together. So yeah, the way they went out wasn't the most exciting, or didn't feel the best, but this team has the makings of a team that's going to be around for a while. So it was really fun, and yeah, I mean, TJ Yeldon getting meaningful snaps just made it even better, I guess.
There was a moment there, I think, where we all became Bills fans. Like, everybody except for, like, a very small portion of Twitter became Bills fans. So I have a question for you, Adam. Now, I've done a show with Derek already, and got to hear some of his famous rants. Do you feel like every show you go into it, like, hoping to push him into a rant, or does he just kind of do that on his own?
No, I don't push him in any rants. It's just like, what was the last one, D-Bro? The Justin Fields. Like, we both love Justin Fields, so that one was, like, no problem with him ranting about the Justin Fields hate.
Yep.
But no, most of it's just D-Bro being D-Bro. It's just it's legitimate. It's raw. It's uncut. It's D-Bro.
Derek, do you remember, like, what you feel like your favorite rant of yours is? Like, do you have, or do you guys have a favorite one that you, like, it just went off the rails and it was just...
The Matt Ryan one last year was really good.
Oh, the Matt Ryan one was... That one was, we were actually with one of our coworkers at FTN, Joe Metz, and we were doing the DFS game by game. If you go look at my timeline on Twitter, I actually referenced it today. It's up in my replies, but that one was really interesting because we had just seen the Falcons and the Packers play, and Matt Ryan he fell apart against one of the teams in the NFL that could not pressure, could not do anything, and Matt Ryan just looked like he forgot to play football. That got brought up today because Adam and I did an underdog draft. We're streaming that on YouTube, and we stacked the Falcons. So Joe Metz went out to Twitter, and he's like, yeah, man, like, this is really interesting. Is this one of those tweets where it's like, oh, I might have been kidnapped? Because I laid into Matt Ryan. He has gotten the moniker on the podcast as Captain Shitpants for that particular game because he just fell apart, man. Like, he lost the ability to play football. He dropped back every single time and was like, I don't know what to do. He really, he pulled his best Sam Darnold seeing Ghost impression. So that was one of the classic ones. I mean, honestly, I get loud, I get high pitched every time. It's an adventure to edit our podcast because usually I'm having to adjust myself down because I'm loud and I never shut up, just like this. So as far as rants go, there's usually one in an episode that I just get off on some kind of random ass tangent because that's what happens. Adam could probably tell you better on which ones stand out as the craziest to him because I just feel like I never shut up. So they all kind of run together for me.
Well, you're right. Like you hit the high notes, definitely on your podcast. Adam's got such a great voice.
Sultry. He feels like he has the southern sultry voice. Yes. Everybody tells him we balance each other out. And I don't think that I'm not trying to be anybody. This is just me being me. I mean, I think we've talked enough, Cal. You've realized that I'm just the psycho and that's how it is. But Adam is a great balance out because he brings me back down and centers me on the podcast, and he's just a good balancing point, man. His content's fantastic, man. I mean, I love it every single day that we get to do this podcast because honestly, this was not my brainchild. Adam came to me with the podcast, and I was like, he's like, no, let's do this podcast. And I was like, shit, okay, fine, let's do the podcast. And he twists my arm, and thus FTC was born. So.
And Adam obviously is much more laid back. I mean, we definitely have some yin and yang here, but do you ever try to push his buttons? Do you ever try to get underneath his skin a little bit and get him excited?
All I got to do is talk about Peeps and
oh my God. 2 through 3 weeks ago. Yeah, we had some interesting food takes. I'm a massive connoisseur of all things jelly beans. And apparently somebody wronged Adam at some stage of life with jelly beans. Somebody gave it to him at Halloween. Somebody just crapped in his cornflakes with jelly beans. I don't understand what happened, but the man was hurt, and he's still hurt. And Adam's food takes we will never usually agree on. So if you want to hear something to get Adam riled up, discuss all things candy and food with him, and you're usually going to get some type of, I'm just going to say it, Adam, it's some type of insanity that flows out of that mouth.
It's those Northerners, Derek. They just don't have those refined taste buds that jelly beans require.
Dude, Starburst sour jelly beans are in the top 5 of all time candies. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Those are the only jelly beans I don't hate. I will say that.
Okay, well, fine. You do have some sanity. Hey, they don't have to count as a food. They're fine. I mean,
food to be enjoyable. I mean, it's
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay,
so it's not a food. It's enjoyable.
Let's talk a little bit about what you guys, obviously you do a show, you talk a lot about rookies, things like that. And in fact, when we were on our show the last time, Derek, you talked about Dynasty being something you love because you love evaluating rookies. What do you think it is about that process, about the evaluation of rookies? And I've heard both you guys talk a lot about them. Why do you love that so much? What is it about that process that is so, I guess, fulfilling or just so exciting for you?
I mean, it kind of flows into all of the stuff that we love doing with football. I mean, it's really just another puzzle and trying to understand. I mean, Adam and I talk about this constantly and how we break down rookies and players and stuff, and not talking about what players can't do, but talking about what they can do and how they succeed and trying to understand, really trying to get context out of some of these guys' careers. Like if we saw dips in production, if we saw lapses, if we didn't see growth from year to year, like if they basically hit the collegiate scene and they exploded And then you see he just kind of fizzles out after that. And putting all these things together, and what does that mean for their projection to the NFL? So that's really what I love about it. And looking at all the different layers to that, instead of just saying, well, okay, he never surpassed 700 yards rushing in a season. He must suck. He never caught more than 15 passes. This guy never was the alpha until his junior or senior season, or he had a late breakout age, and all these different layers of context of that I think really need to be applied to all these players, because it's easy, especially this time of the year, Cal, to get caught up in like the damn echo chamber, and everybody's thoughts are aligned, and we're all just like singing Kumbaya, and we're hugging, and we're like, yeah, I love this guy, I don't like this guy, blah, blah, blah. Ooh, isn't it great? Oh, like, no, I mean, if that happens, that's wonderful. If it doesn't happen, I'm fine with it too. I mean, that's understanding the puzzle is why I love them.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, I just think, like, at the end of the day, like, I feel like a lot of us that play fantasy and do fantasy content, like, there's deep down a lot of us, and a part of a lot of us that wants to be like a scout, right? Like, and this gives you the closest chance to do that. Now, by all means, you don't have to watch film and stuff like that, but I just think it's a fun process to. Whereas, like in redraft, like, okay, at this point, we all know who DeAndre Hopkins is and Alvin Kamara and these guys. But like for these rookies that are coming in, like it's kind of fun to learn more about them, more about their background, and then obviously, coming out of college, you can watch what you think they're like. It's almost like just telling yourself a story, painting yourself a picture, and then seeing how it turns out, you know, a year or two down the road. There's been plenty of players that I've just loved coming out of college that just were not very productive in the NFL. There's been a couple that, you know, late round players that I was like, this player is really interesting. I think he's a lot better than a lot of other people think, and he turns out to be a solid player. So it's kind of fun to just kind of, you know, tell yourself that story and paint yourself that picture and see how it plays out, you know, down the line a year or two. And it's like players like James Robinson from last year is why I liked this process, because James Robinson, I mean, this class for offensive skill players last year was loaded, and James Robinson was arguably better than any of them. And that, to me, that's why this process is so fun, because James Robinson's, you know, come out of nowhere every year and really make a career for themselves.
Yeah, it really is a lot of fun to. I think you're right. Like, going back to what you said there, Derek, about like trying to put together the pieces and what matters and like what doesn't matter. And I think, you know, we all kind of have our own bias, and we've heard a lot of people who, you know, they like this quality about somebody, or they, you know, maybe it's film, maybe it's analytics, maybe it's some application of analytics to the film, or vice versa. Maybe it's just looking at their BMI, whatever the case is. Like, we've seen a lot of different like takes and people trying to put those pieces together. And Adam, I'll go back to you on this, because we all kind of have our own bias built in. Like, we like a certain type of running back, maybe, or a certain type of wide receiver, or, you know, or maybe we can kind of get carried away with certain types. Like, do you have certain biases that you kind of know about when you're watching, that you're like, man, I know I like this kind of player, and so you think about that in your evaluation? Or do you like, you feel like you kind of try to just push all that out, or do you embrace that?
Yeah, I mean, I've already talked about it with a handful of players during the process. Like, I have always just kind of gravitated towards like really elite route running receivers. Like, those have been personally my favorite receivers to watch. Some people like watching the physical high point, you know, red zone receivers. Some people just like to watch the speed receivers. And for me, like I'm a huge fan of the route technician. That's why, you know, Devontae Adams is one of my favorite players in the league. Like, you know, Robert Woods, like these really technical receivers that do, you know, they're not bad athletes by any means, but that's not the strongest part of their game. I like the receivers that can get open running any sort of route, and also can do little things. Like Robert Woods, for instance, is one of my favorite receivers in the league, the best blocking receiver in the NFL, hands down. Like, he lays people out on the floor and on the field, and that's little stuff like that I think I kind of gravitate towards. I still love, you know, all other aspects of wide receiver, right? Playing the receiver, getting open, making contested catches, all that stuff. But for me, my favorite thing to watch, and it kind of pairs with some of the receivers that I like in certain classes the past couple of years. I like the just absolute route technicians that can run any route in the book.
Yeah, like I guess Jerry Jeudy last year might be a really good example of someone like that. What about this class? Is there somebody that like really stood out to you in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people weren't crazy about him with his speed or lack thereof.
Say it.
I love
Say it. I know you're
St. Brown. He reminded me of Stevie Johnson. He really did. Like, he can run a ton of routes. He's not the fastest. Like, I just think at that, with the ability to get open in any part of the field, like, yeah, it'd be a lot better, and he'd have a much higher draft ceiling if he were a 4.4 receiver, but he's not. And I still think running a 4.61 or whatever he ran with the ability to run routes like he can, he's still going to get open at the NFL level. And at the end of the day, like, that's your number one goal as a wide receiver, is to get open. If you can get open against any sort of coverage, like, I just think that's really valuable. And sometimes we get too sucked into the 40 times and the pro days and stuff like that, and just overlook the fact that, hey, this guy can just run routes and get open and just make plays. So yeah, that would probably be Amon-Ra St. Brown for me.
So Derek, I guess going back to kind of the that topic, like, do you have like certain biases built in where you're like, okay, I really like this? Maybe it's big running backs or small, quick running backs, or whatever it is. Like, do you have certain biases built in and certain players that you tend to gravitate to?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, like, really throughout the whole season, with us trying to keep up with the NFL, and whether it's redraft, whether it's DFS, as deep as Adam and I go on a weekly basis, and just the bandwidth, there's just not enough hours in the day. Like, I don't ever, to be honest, like, I never care about college, and I don't ever look at any prospects until after the season. So, like, after the Super Bowl, that's where I dive into, like, college prospects. So before then, I never watched any Najee Harris. Before then, I never watched any of these guys. And so a lot of the bias, whereas, like, you got guys and dude, kudos to everybody that does all that multi-layered stuff throughout the year. Everybody that plays Debbie and things of that nature. I mean, look, my hat is off to them. But I don't have the bandwidth to keep up with college as deep as we go with the NFL on a weekly basis. So really, I don't have any kind of, like, pre-baked in biases. Like, I've loved Travis Etienne for the last 3 years. It's really comes down to, like, when I turn on the film, and really, I look at the numbers before I ever watch games. So looking and seeing what the numbers tell me based off of what this guy did, and then I go watch some games and try to give another layer of context. Because like Adam's talking about, like, as much as and as deep as we get into with numbers and film and analytics, and I know Adam does the same thing, we try to marry the two of those. We're not scouts. I'm not out here trying to proclaim that I am a scout. But trying to marry all this stuff together, there's no bias there. Like, I mean, I just kind of roll with whatever the marriage between film and analytics tells us and build the picture from there.
When you talk about the stats, I mean, obviously there's, just carries and yards and, touchdowns and little things like that. But do you have like certain favorites of the kind of the next generation of scouts, or the, maybe target share or touchdown share, whatever it is? Like, do you have a favorite one of those?
For running backs, it's really yards after contact per attempt. I mean, my favorite position to break down is running backs. I love watching running backs because receivers and quarterbacks, it's such a damn hard projection because you're playing into so many different things. You're talking about landing spot, you're talking about scheme, you're talking about usage, and maybe how they win and their skill set. They don't get airdropped into a situation that is conducive for those things. And then we can't assume irrational coaching. So with running backs, it's the most tried and true kind of like set and forget. They get airdropped into certain situations. There is some nuance and context to like systems and blocking schemes like that, but that's my favorite to watch. So for running backs, I'll look at yards after contact per attempt. I'll look at some yards per route run metrics for pass game usage, some other things like target share and stuff like that. But really, with running backs, I want to see, are you elusive, and what type of competition you go up against, and how did you do, and what kind of offensive line you ran behind. But at the basis of it, I want to see, can you break tackles, and are you elusive? Because that's the one thing that nobody can teach you. a lot of times you either do it well or you don't do it well. And there's not a lot of guys that you see that transition to the NFL that were not good in that metric, that all of a sudden they get to the NFL and they're surrounded by a field full of dudes that run 4.3s, 4.4s, and they're athletic freaks, and they just become better at that. So really, that's one of the things for running back specifically. I mean, wide receivers, we could talk for days about breakout age, dominator, yards per route run, all those types of things that you kind of look at for receiving options and stuff like that. But running backs is the position I love to watch every single year.
Adam, and you kind of gravitated when you just said that to the wide receiver position, and obviously Amon-Ra, I've heard you talk about him, but like maybe outside of him, because I know you've talked about him a lot. Do you have like somebody that just jumped out, like not necessarily you would say is the best prospect, but just somebody that jumped out as the favorite that you kind of can't wait to see what happens with them at the next level?
I'm curious if I could read Adam's mind here. Go ahead, buddy.
Bateman.
That's not where I thought he was going to go.
Where'd you think I was going?
I thought you were going with your mans. I mean, you were talking about route running, so I mean, earlier, so I'm not surprised you went with Bateman. I guess I am a little bit, but I thought you were going to talk about your man crush.
I already talked about Amon-Ra.
Oh, your other man crush, your first round man crush, Kadarius Toney. I thought that's where you were going.
I do love Kadarius Toney. I guess I can put both of them together. But Bateman, like, he was, I think, the second receiver I watched, and like I talked about Devontae Adams in terms of like release, and his release was ridiculous. Like that's a super difficult like trait to master at that level, and his was really good. That stood out. And yeah, I like Kadarius Toney, I think, a lot more than other people. I think he's getting viewed as a gadget player, and I think he's more than that. I really do. I thought he's obviously like ridiculous after the catch, great speed, can be used as a running back, jet sweeps and stuff, but he like has legitimately really strong hands. I don't think people realize. I think he needs to become a more polished route runner, and if that happens, he could be legitimately one of the best receivers in this class. I think he's that talented. So yeah, those two stood out the most to me. Like when watching football, like Kadarius Toney, I forget which game it was, but he literally had like my favorite play of anybody I watched at receiver. It was ridiculous. It was like he caught it across the middle, like he ran one of those real. It was like he made up the route in his head and just broke somebody's ankles and went across the middle and like broke 3 tackles and scored like a 60-yard touchdown. It was incredible.
Is that the one where it looked like he was like Allen Iverson, like crossing a dude over and like broke it, like you said, broke his ankles and then caught it over the middle and ran straight up field? Yes,
like,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Ran through like 3 defenders and then scored.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it really, and he rarely gets tackled by the first person that tries to tackle him. That's something people don't really realize, and not always because he makes them miss. Like sometimes, like he's more physical than people think. I expected to see like Tavon Austin or something when I first started, because that was just my idea. He was a gadget guy, but he's way more physical. You mentioned kind of Hines Ward, and I'm not saying he's that level, but like he likes to pass block too. I mean, run block.
The first thing I saw when I watched him was a smaller Deebo Samuel. Like he's definitely smaller than Deebo, but the play style is very similar.
Yeah, and Derek, I know you kind of like him too, but let's just say outside of the guys that you've already mentioned, you mentioned the running backs. We know about the top ones and all that, but like, is there somebody else that is like kind of a favorite that jumped out to you that just impressed you in some way?
Where he's going.
He set me up to sit here and slam dunk about Terrace Marshall. That's where I feel like I'm being pushed to right now. That or I mean, look, I haven't shut up on Twitter about it. I love Terrace Marshall. Absolutely love him. And I love the fact that he's getting all this steam right now. Fantastic. I love it, man, because he's still not getting enough love. I mean, I know that there has been a lot out on social media for him recently, but there really does. His ceiling is sky high. And just giving context to his final season at LSU, what he was able to do. I mean, obviously, as good. If Chase really is that alpha dog, really is that good, and we know Justin Jefferson is. I mean, this is not another Henry Ruggs. This is not another like, okay, he wasn't able to do it until all the dudes were gone. I mean, we got to give context to like, this was he was on one of the best collegiate teams ever. You can make an argument they were the best collegiate team ever. and he was the third wide receiving option on that team. So yeah, I love Terrace Marshall. Absolutely love him. The other guy that I've been talking about on social media, and I think that he's got the upside to be a workhorse back at the NFL level. I'm still going to talk about Trey Sermon. Just giving context to his, and we're talking about giving context to not only film, up and down careers, what he was able to do on a per carry elusivity metrics. Like, he was top 20 if you look at yards per contact or yards after contact per attempt. He was top 20 amongst running backs with 75 or more carries in multiple seasons when he wasn't hurt or they weren't running gap. So all I pray for is zone scheme and draft capital for him to go in the top 3 and 4 rounds. Those are the two guys that really jumped out at me a lot in this whole process. Outside of like your tip top kind of guys, those are the ones that really jumped out at me. I could sit here and give you some Michael Carter love because I think he's a fantastic guy that really makes the most out of his physical abilities. I know he didn't test really well. I know he's on the smaller side, but his abilities in the pass game, and I think that we're talking about traits and characteristics that translate to the next level. Look, if you've got vision like freaking Kalen Ballage and you can't see a hole, even if it's like staring you straight in the face, it doesn't freaking matter how fast you run. Whereas you have somebody like Michael Carter who sets up defenders, he wins with lateral agility and his vision. You put him in a team, those traits translate over a 4.3 speed, over a guy that it's all nothing but physicality and really not a whole lot of other types of polish. So with Michael Carter, I think that he's a guy that's going to make the most of his freaking touches at the NFL level. So if he gets 12 to 14 touches a game, is he a guy that's going to maximize those touches and in that sense maybe earn some more work? That's a reason that like I'm in on Michael Carter, and I think that depending on what NFL teams think about him, I'm really hoping, again, kind of like Trey Sermon, top 3-4 rounds. If he does that, then I'm probably going to have a lot of exposure to him in Dynasty rookie drafts.
Yeah, draft capital for these guys is going to make huge difference, I think, in the ADP as we start to look at that in the next month or so. Really important question here from Jason. Who are you guys? So I am at Calvin and Hobby. This is Derek Brown over here. And then below us is Rafael Nadal. And he's joining us. He's become a fantasy football expert. We're excited he's here. And
come for the football, stay for the tennis takes.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So I want to build on this from Jordan here. Bring Sermon to the Jets in round 3. I don't know why the comments are like covering up Adam. I don't understand why it's doing this, but okay, we'll just go with it every now and then. I'm sorry.
It's a good thing.
Trey Sermon to the Jets in round 3, but like, okay, so let's just think about the NBA for a second. Look, if the NBA wants Patrick Ewing in the Knicks, they'll just rig the lottery. They'll just figure it out. Mm-hmm. If the NFL did something similar, and let's say Adam, let's say the NFL, Roger Goodell came to you and said, like, okay, who do you think I should put on what team? What's the best fit? Like, if you were just the czar of where these guys go, who sticks out as the perfect marriage with the right team?
D-Bro knows where I'm going.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going. Go back.
I'll go back to the same two players real quick.
Go back to your man.
Kadarius Toney to Green Bay. I don't think it's going to happen, but I talked about one of his weaknesses is his, inconsistency. Is he's not exactly the most polished route runner. Devontae Adams is the best route runner in the NFL. Like, learning from him, and the fact the Packers don't have any like elite yak receivers, right? Devontae Adams wins everywhere, but he's not exactly a guy that rips off 30 yards after the catch plays like AJ Brown. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is strictly a deep threat guy. When he catches it, it's a touchdown. When he doesn't, obviously he doesn't. And then Allen Lazard's kind of just a slot guy, nothing really too special. They need somebody they can scheme touches to and just make plays after the catch. So I think that'd be a great fit. And I'll go back to Rashad Bateman to Tennessee. I think that would be sick. And I know he's not like the elite in terms of yards after the catch. I know it's a lot what this Tennessee offense is predicated off, but they're also, they don't have Arthur Smith anymore. They obviously need a number 2 receiver next to AJ Brown. I think Rashad Bateman would be perfect there because I think would work with AJ Brown really well. AJ Brown can win at all levels, but also just kind of make plays with his athleticism and ability. And then Rashad Bateman was more of the, get off the line, win off route running. I know his size was a little bit underwhelming at his pro day, but I think he would be like, I wouldn't mind any receiver like Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, one of those receivers at 22 to the Titans I would like a lot. So definitely those two.
Those are really those landing spots are going to be whoever goes there is going to get like way bumped up in ADP, no doubt. Derek, what about you? Like if you could just match, maybe it's Trey Sermon somewhere, maybe it's somebody else that you're thinking of, but who would be the perfect match, you think?
Do you want one player? I can give you a few, actually.
Okay, yeah, give me a few. Let's go.
The low-hanging fruit, and I'm just going to go back to it. The low-hanging fruit is Justin Fields to San Francisco. That would break football. Justin Fields is a franchise-changing quarterback. You put him in San Francisco, you put him rolling out of the pocket, you put it in an offense that's predication on yards after the catch. He could take deep shots, motion. It would break shit. Like, he would ridiculously blow up in his rookie season.
Time I'll ever purchase a San Francisco jersey. I'll just throw in that.
Man, I would freak the hell out if that happened. That is one of the fits that would just absolutely break the mold. But outside of that, Trey Sermon, give me to his zone scheme, man. So we're talking about, I like the Jets. The Jets are not bad. If they incorporate some other things like with San Francisco, considering they have their pass game coordinator as their offensive coordinator, I think that's a really, really good fit. The two places that Adam and I have mocked Trey Sermon, or at least on the podcast that I sent him to, was San Francisco maybe in round 4 or Atlanta. Atlanta in round 3 is the place that I would love him to go. He'd have the draft capital, and he'd be going to a zone scheme. Arthur Smith, seeing a volume back, doesn't have to play in the passing game, although he can pass block extremely well. He showed us that in college. If I'm rolling out landing spots, that for Trey Sermon. Terrace Marshall, oh my Lord. How high would he go if he went to Kansas City at the back end of the first? Ooh. Everybody would be shooting him up boards even higher than that. You'd see people with him in top 2, top 3. Just considering he gets first-round draft capital, he goes to freaking Kansas City. He's with Patty Mahomes, with Tyreek Hill's contract after this season and moving forward. They can get out from under his contract in the short term very, very easily. So you look at an upside for an aging Travis Kelce and paired with Patrick Mahomes. That would be
I need
fantastic.
To add one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kyle Pitts to Carolina.
Oh, that would be beautiful. Hey, let's go back here. It won't happen.
No.
But you were talking about San Francisco previously too, Adam. You brought that up way back. Would you still love that as much?
Yeah, I mean, at 3, no, because that means they're passing on Justin Fields, who's the GOAT.
Yeah.
So no. But Kyle Pitts to Carolina, the only concern I have with Kyle Pitts at the NFL level is if his offensive coordinator doesn't use him how he should be used. And that's not going to happen in Carolina with Joe Brady and company.
Yes,
and
thank you.
They literally had Ian Thomas running wind sprints last season. He just ran routes to run routes.
Thank you, because everybody's like, oh, Joe Brady never uses the tight end. No, look, he had Thaddeus Moss and he had Ian Thomas.
Talk about bad narratives.
Kyle Pitts, he's going to use
top
Kyle
10 in
Pitts.
routes run, but he was 30th or something in targets among tight ends. It was ridiculous. And then Curtis Samuel's gone, so if he somehow went to, there you go, yeah. But if he went to Carolina,
it's a fantastic fit.
Robbie's
on a 1-year deal too. Pitts could step in along DJ Moore and be.
All they do is scheme guys open after the catch, and Kyle Pitts.
Oh my gosh,
dominate.
That would be absolutely ridiculous. I would love that.
It's probably not going to happen, but there's a slight possibility he's there at 8. I don't see it, but that's probably as far as he would fall.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, that's probably his floor, but we talked about it, man. That would be a great spot, man.
That's a good point. Yeah. The best offensive coordinators don't just have one scheme and fit everybody into it. They use the players that they have. And Joe Brady is one of those, no doubt.
Yeah, we just saw the last comment. Well, what was it all the other stuff we're talking about, bad narratives a few years ago? Well, Shanahan doesn't use tight ends, right? That was the thing for George Kittle and why he couldn't break out, right? Oh, and then George Kittle wasn't going to get the same type of target share because, they added wide receivers and stuff. I mean, we just keep rolling through all these bad, horrible narratives from the echo chamber every year.
Okay, I'm ready to play the game. So this is going to be random facts. I'm going to throw them out there. It might have something to do with their personal life. It might have something to do with their numbers on the field. So let's just see. All right, I'm going to start at the quarterback position. And this quarterback, during the quarantine last year, he worked DoorDash to make ends meet. I love that. Love the work ethic. His uncle is the founder of JetBlue, the airline.
All right.
Had a 67.6% completion percentage last year. Any guesses?
Adam? I'm stalling.
Yeah. So it was DoorDash? That's interesting.
Yeah. He went DoorDash and not waiter. Probably a good choice.
JetBlue.
His uncle owned JetBlue.
I'm gonna go, man. Trey Lance.
My guess is Trey Lance or Mac Jones. One or the other.
His uncle can fly him to MetLife Stadium after he goes number 2 to the New York Jets. Zach Wilson.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't know that about Zach Wilson.
Yeah. So obviously he's kind of locked in there to number 2. And we talked about the Jets and what a fit like some of the running backs might be. But like, what do you guys think about that? Like 67.6% completion percentage. Like there's a lot of things to like about him, but I know there are other people who have their hesitations. What did you guys see when you watched him?
Adam, you're higher on him than me. Why don't you lead this off before I kind of poo-poo it a little bit?
What? Wait. No, I'm not. We're both lower on him than consensus.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think he's got all the tools, like for sure. But I worried that we didn't see him under pressure a lot at BYU. And the limited snaps I saw you under pressure, he looked like he kind of rushed throws a little bit. And like it's not his fault that BYU's offensive line was so dominant, but I do have a concern. Like with Justin Fields and some of these other quarterbacks, I've seen them take snaps under pressure. I saw Justin Fields play a game with like backup offensive linemen, centers moving to guards moving to centers, bad snaps, and he just looks so composed. That's why I love Justin Fields. And I wish I would have seen that from Zach. I wish I would have seen things go badly for him with the play around him a little bit more. But like you can't deny the arm talent. He can make off-platform throws like crazy. I think we've talked about it. I think Justin Fields is closer to Trevor Lawrence than he is to Zach Wilson personally. But that's not to say Zach Wilson's a bad prospect. This is a great quarterback class. I just like Justin Fields better. But I mean, Zach Wilson's got incredible arm talent. He's mobile. And like he's one of those players that the play's not dead until the ball hits the ground or gets completed or whatever. Like it's always alive with Zach Wilson. So do I like him more than Justin Fields? No, but do I think he's a bad prospect? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm consistently lower on Zach Wilson, and it's not that I don't see the ceiling. It's just that I see a lot of the warts to his game that you don't hear talked about and you don't hear publicized. And the guy must have one hell of a really good agent or publicist because it's all these different narratives that get thrown out. It's all the off platform. Like, oh my gosh, how many times we got to hear that freaking shit like that? And Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and these names that get thrown up and how he's a rushing quarterback or he's really mobile. He scored 10 rushing touchdowns. That doesn't make him a rushing quarterback. That's like calling Baker Mayfield a rushing quarterback. That's not a thing. So I'm not saying that the guy doesn't have a high ceiling. He definitively does, but there are also a ton of concerns to his game. And you want to talk about competition level. You want to talk about a faster game speed at the NFL level for a guy that faced the amongst all passers with, I think it was either 50 or 100 or more dropbacks last year, faced the 4th lowest pressure rate against anybody. And people talk about that for Mac Jones. It's true for Zach Wilson. And you look at Zach Wilson, short resume. People talk about Trey Lance and that he's inconsistent, he's raw, he's developmental. those same monikers and these same types of things need to be brought up with Zach Wilson like they're brought up with Trey Lance, because it's definitively true. There are a lot of things to his game. Is he very aggressive downfield? Yes. He will throw into double coverage. He has really good ball placement. When you put him at the NFL level and he's going to see exotic blitz packages, the game's going to be faster. If he goes to the Jets, he is definitively going to see more pressure than he ever saw at college. And for a guy that he was really, really good at every different metric you look at, passer rating, completion percentage for pressure, in 2020, he was terrible versus those in the other two previous seasons. So really a short stint of being really good versus pressure, especially 2 out of the 3 years he was bad versus it. He's going to a team where he is going to be pressured a good amount because the offensive line still isn't good, if we're saying the Jets. And so I think there's a lot of concerns. There's the ceiling there. Is he aggressive? Does he have the talent to succeed in the NFL and reach a high ceiling? Yes, he does. Could he also be a guy that after being, we're talking about a top 3, if nothing else, a top 5 pick in the NFL draft? Could he be the next Mitch Trubisky, and a team after 3 or 4 years is like, oh, dear God, he never took the next step. He was borderline awful. Or we had to really dial back our scheme and stuff because he never took a step forward as a player. Yes, that floor for Zach Wilson is also definitively there. And that doesn't get discussed, I think, nearly enough.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we assume we know these quarterbacks, and we're like, okay, yeah, these are the best, and they're going to hit, but it's still not a super great hit rate in the first round, and some of these guys are going to bust. So here's another one. Next question. Quarterback still. Okay, few facts. His dad played cornerback in the CFL. He had the highest yards per attempt of any, and I'm using DLF's ADP for all of them that registered an ADP in any of the DLF mocks. Highest yards per attempt. Highest rushing yard average of any of the quarterbacks. I think this one, I got one more. I think this one's going to give it away. You have any guesses so far?
Bro?
I want to go off page here. Something like Davis Mills or somebody. That's really, but I'm probably wrong.
The last one is the best touchdown to interception rate of any of the quarterbacks.
Oh gosh, it's Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you automatically get that when you don't throw any freaking interceptions, basically.
Yeah.
That automatically just, that's it. That's the giveaway.
We threw one.
Yep.
That's amazing. I mean, truly, when you start digging around in some of his numbers, highest yards per attempt, too. It's not like he was just dinking and dunking. I mean, this is a guy highest yards per attempt and highest rushing yard average. We talk a lot about Fields and having that Konami code possibility. Trey Lance could have that too. What did you guys see when you watched him?
I'm a little bit lower on Lance than I think consensus too. I see the raw traits. I think that some of his numbers, because of that high touchdown to interception ratio, are extremely puffed up. Because if you look at passer ratings, which can be skewed a lot by touchdowns and interceptions, his deep passer rating is fantastic. His pressured passer rating is fantastic because he didn't throw any freaking picks. But if you look at his completion percentages on those metrics, they're really, really low, as well as his adjusted completion percentage. It's really, really low in this class. So while I think that the raw talent is there, I think that if he doesn't find more consistency, a la Adam is, his love for Josh Allen, if he doesn't take that type of leap, I'm concerned about Trey Lance going to the next level. I think that him and Zach Wilson are in the same tier for me, in that I see a really, really low floor, and other things and dynamics of his game, like all the rushing. Yeah, he's a good rusher, and he has the ability to run the ball. But if you look at his vision, and if we're talking about Trey Lance in the same tier of Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, he's not that. He's not that, and I will push back on that. He is not that as a rusher. When we talked about him on Fade the Chalk, I comped him to if we're looking at rushing equity, that you're really hoping for touchdowns and maybe 400 yards or esque. Like I put him closer to like everybody talks about him as like, okay, maybe he's Cam Newton as a rusher. I don't think he's that either. I think he's Dak Prescott as a rusher. And I think that's probably more reasonable in looking at how his skills translate, because we're talking about decreased level of competition and what he did. He was extremely efficient, didn't make a lot of mistakes. This is also versus really small school competition. And for a guy that we're talking about with all these raw abilities, I didn't see him just ridiculously go God mode, like stiff arming fools, juking people, just like out of their freaking shoes and breaking ankles. Like I didn't see all these different things. Now, does he have the ability to fit passes in tight windows and he can show touch? Yes, but if you look at everything on paper, it also speaks to a guy that can do that. But how often does he do that? Like, is he going to flash you like 5 highlight reel plays a game that legit maybe 6 guys in the NFL could do? Sure. Is he going to do that on a consistent enough basis where he's also not going to, outside of decision making, he's also going to win you a game and stuff of that nature? That's the biggest question marks I have for him. Just looking at his overall profile.
Adam, you're on the same page?
I think I like him a little bit more, but like he's been getting comped to Josh Allen a lot, and I don't think he's he underthrows a lot of deep balls where Josh Allen, you know, he still does it, but his first couple of years, his problem was he was throwing them too far, which I guess is better because they're not getting picked off. But and he doesn't throw into tight windows very often. That's why he had such a low interception rate. Like he will either make the right read, he doesn't force throws. It reminded me a lot of Tyrod over his career. I think Trey Lance, like ability wise, is like, you know, a lot better than Tyrod, but the way they kind of survey the field and make decisions are kind of similar. But as a rusher, I think he's a little bit more of a physical runner than Dak Prescott. But I think he needs to get a little bit more consistent with his deep ball, which will come can and will come in time. We've seen that. But I just think at the end of the day, like one of these teams, whoever's there, like he's a perfect player to. That's why I still think the Falcons shouldn't just completely cross him out of their player pool at 4 if he's there, assuming he is, because like he's a perfect player to say, okay, we have Matt Ryan locked up for a couple of years. Let's, you know, let him learn from Matt Ryan, and you'll still have some talented playmakers to throw to if you have to go into the game. So I like him. He's I haven't done quarterback rankings, but I think he's definitely right there with Zach Wilson for me.
I love that you brought up his arm strength, because that's one thing that I feel like everybody kind of talks about, and he's got a cannon and stuff like that.
It's good.
It's good. It's not great. It's not Josh Allen, and I think it's a little bit over publicized. Like I think Zach Wilson has a stronger arm than he does. I think that you see wide receivers slowing up on a lot of different deep routes, whereas Zach Wilson has really good ball placement on those routes, and I think that he's got more juice on the ball deep than even Trey Lance, and I think that. It's kind of one of the things that people talk about, because people talk about raw traits and it's like, oh, he's got a cannon. And I'm like, I wouldn't say it's a cannon. I think that he could throw deep. I don't think that he's got a pop gun arm at all, but I think it's a little bit over publicized for how strong his arm actually is.
We won't spend a ton of time on this one, but this guy is one of 3 quarterbacks ever to have 90 passing touchdowns and 30 rushing touchdowns. Of all the quarterbacks that have an ADP on DLF, he has the most completions, the most yards, the most passing touchdowns, the most rushing yards, and the most rushing touchdowns. Any guesses?
Adam?
Is it Fields?
No.
It's not Fields.
Lawrence?
Mm-mm.
All right. Cool. Are you going off the page here? Are we going like Kellen Mond here?
Worse.
Worse?
Felipe Franks?
I was gonna say I was gonna go with Franks next. No,
not Franks. Nope.
Was it
Sam
Davis Mills?
Ellinger?
Oh, Sam was gonna be my next one after Davis. Okay, yeah.
Wow.
You don't think he has a possibility of being a thing, though, right? I mean, that's kind of inflated numbers from the system and the defenses he was facing, or what?
Yeah, I don't think that his ceiling is really high. I mean, you stick him after these top 5 quarterbacks in this draft, there's just a large bucket of guys that are probably going to get pushed up into rounds that they should never be drafted at because they're quarterbacks. And this happens every freaking year. You know, like people want to talk about like Jacob Eason was going to be a freaking thing. He was never going to be a thing.
Mhm.
And so you got this large bucket, like even the top tier of that bucket, the guy like that's barely skimming the surface is Kyle Trask. He's never going to be a thing. If somebody takes him in the second round, they're going to be in quarterback purgatory a la Drew Lock for the next 2 to 3 seasons. So, out of the top 5 guys, there's not a guy jumping out at me right now that I think is really going to be super successful, at least the guys we've gotten through so far.
Let's go to running backs because there's definitely some talented guys there. Let's talk about, we're going to stick to stats on this one because some interesting ones that jumped out to me. Out of all of the running backs who registered an ADP on DLF, who had the most receiving touchdowns?
Ooh.
I want to say Najee Harris.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
You got
I was
it.
going Najee or Kylan Hill probably.
He's so good as a receiver. It's ridiculous.
People don't give him credit for it. I mean,
He literally has like he has a catch radius of like like he goes high points the ball. Like it's ridiculous how good of a receiver he is.
The one thing I love about Najee and that hasn't been at least circulated a ton. Does everybody realize how rough of a background that guy came from?
Mhm.
Like growing up, he literally lived out of a car for a certain amount of time. He came from like an abusive home and stuff of that nature. This dude overcame all of that shit and is now looking at possibly getting drafted in the first round. Succeeded at the highest level at Alabama. Like we talk about like looking at all these different layers and like looking at past them as players and rooting for them and people that like just despite everything in their lives like succeed and just push through stuff. Dude, I love Najee Harris. And I love his pass game usage. I think that between that and his ability in traffic, both with his footwork and some vision, I think mostly it's
Jump
footwork
cut
and
nasty.
that's where I feel like the Matt Forte comp holds true. Because he runs and his ability in traffic to weave through some of that. He runs like a guy that's 30 pounds lighter. And that's really that ability alone through traffic some of the pass game stuff is really where I feel like the Matt Forte comp sticks. Yeah,
I like it. And number 1 recruit in 2017, like as a running back, that's pretty incredible. 36 touchdowns in his high school junior year, 34 in his high school senior year. Just unreal type numbers and production. It just must have been so much fun to watch in high school. All right, next running back. Of all the running backs that had an ADP on DLF, the most attempts, the most yards, the highest average, the most touchdowns, most receptions, and most receiving yards of anyone.
Is it of from this past season or just?
Yeah. The draft eligible one, so we're just the 2021 class.
Singular season or over their career?
Over their career.
Oh, okay.
You
said most attempts, and I immediately wanted to say Chuba Hubbard because he led the nation in attempts 2019.
Good guess, but no.
But yeah, then you said receptions and everything too, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, D bro? My guess is wrong.
I'm just gonna go Travis Etienne here.
Yeah. I feel like
that's go Travis Etienne here.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna go Travis. Yeah, I mean we're talking about counting stats. Yeah.
The narrative on Najee is that he's not able to use be as effective out of the passing game for some reason, and I think that like Travis Etienne, we don't think of him as having the ability to be a workhorse. Why not?
He really showed that this last season. He had more games of high carry totals than he had in the previous season before. And you look at Clemson, just how they were composed as an offensive team. Dude, they never had a chance to win that game versus Alabama. They did Trevor Lawrence didn't have the skill players around him, considering that this offense ran through freaking Amari Rodgers and Travis Etienne. And Amari Rodgers is just not that good a player that can take over a game and supersede some of these things. Trevor Lawrence just never had a chance. And what Travis Etienne did in this past season, I mean, yeah, he put up the counting stats, dude. He excelled in the passing game. I think I'm kind of curious about some of that because The receiving weapons around him were decreased. But they leaned on him. The offense ran through him and Amari Rodgers on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
So I think that he could be a workhorse. My problems with Travis Etienne is he's going to be a workhorse because of his skill set and his ability. I call him a runway back. Is that like I think that he's going to need blocking, and yes, every running back does, but I don't see a guy that is going to make guys miss as much as somebody even like Najee Harris, Javonte Williams. I put him as a tad bit more landing spot dependent than those two other running backs. So I think that he could be a workhorse, but I think that you're going to have some frustrating weeks, and any team that's going to depend on him as a workhorse, unless he breaks one for a long one, you're going to end up with some like 15 carry for 50-yard performances if he doesn't break a long one. But that goes back to just how I view with Travis Etienne's skill set, though.
Okay, let's talk about wide receivers. We okay on time? We got about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, we're good, man.
Yeah,
okay. I don't have anywhere to be.
Okay, good. Let's talk about some wide receivers then. Do you know which one of the wide receivers? Again, this is of the pool is the ADP, registered ADP at DLF. Which one was a state long jump champion?
Oh, I hate this
In high
question
school?
because I did.
Oh,
I do
there's two
know
or three
this.
guys that are coming to mind.
I do know this, but I don't
I
remember.
know it, and it's been a guy. It's a guy we talked about a while back, Adam.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
I know because I know you brought it up in the intro to the podcast.
I did. I brought it up in the podcast we did. Jesus. It was wasn't it Jamar Chase?
Yep, Jamar
Okay.
Chase.
Because I remember because we crafted the narrative right after that because that was when the narrative on social media was Jamar Chase is kind of slow and maybe he's unathletic. That's what we crafted that around on the podcast. That's one reason I remembered it.
Which was always crazy to begin with that he wasn't an athlete. I mean, like he
was always
started
bad.
as a freshman in high school, basically like the same size he is now. Like he's always been a freak and incredible athlete. He did come in faster than I thought. I don't know if that's just the gun in Baton Rouge, the timer in Baton Rouge, because it seemed like everybody was running a 4.38. But I wasn't expecting that fast. If he really is that fast, I mean, he's next level, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I put him at a 4.4, so I wasn't that surprised considering. I mean, some of these guys, when they get working with a speed coach, and if they drop 5 or 10 pounds, you're talking about because guys, we are literally talking about hundredths of a second here, making the difference in these 40 times. So you're telling me a guy dropping 5 to 10 pounds, working with a speed coach, working on trying to be faster to run this one thing. That doesn't surprise me a whole lot that he ran faster than when I kind of pegged him at. Now, I never said he was slow. Ever. Check the receipts. I thought he was a 4.4 guy. I think I talked about it on the podcast, and people could think it's hyperbolic. His ceiling, his absolute ceiling is Devontae Adams. Top 5, top 3 wide receiver. True alpha that can take over a game. His floor is extremely high as well. I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, because that episode's been a minute. I think my comp for him was like a mishmash of Allen Robinson, and now we got testing numbers, but Allen Robinson and Justin Blackmon, which RIP, gosh, if we'd have seen that guy ball out in the NFL for a full career, it would have been ridiculous. But Jamar Chase is that damn good.
I love him. He just dominated press coverage as a 19-year-old in the toughest conference in college football against, what was it, 3 first or second round corners that got drafted that year? Was it Terrell and Diggs? Like he just
CJ Henderson too.
Right. He just roasted press coverage as a 19-year-old. Super physical off the line. He's like a faster version of Anquan Bolden. Like he's clearly the wide receiver 1 for me in this class.
His body control is what just continued to fascinate me when I would watch him. Like his ability to just move his body in whatever way he needed to catch the ball and maintain like he never looked like he was like off balance or like out of control. Like it was really amazing to watch. I thought, I mean, obviously I'm an LSU fan, so there's some of my bias mixed in there, but he was
that good though, Cal. He really is that good.
Yeah,
he is that good.
Like it depends on however way you want to break it down. He's able to like separate and run past defensive backs, like gain steps on dudes in the open field. Plus, he's physical as hell. Like the guy was so freaking strong at the catch point. And whether you want to talk about his ability to separate or not separate, when you have somebody like that can do the things that he can do in the open field and at the catch point, I don't care. Like he's that special.
100%. Okay, so here's another one. All right, this wide receiver, as a freshman, drew comparisons in his very first spring game to a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, first round NFL pick. His first spring game.
Oh Lord.
Got me on that one.
Hold up. I'm trying to think. Kadarius Toney?
Yes.
Oh, that's a great call because he played quarterback.
He played quarterback in high school. That's exactly where I was going with it. I was like, we got to go with one of these guys that play. And that's where my mind went to Kenny Gainwell at first. And I was like, okay, it's not Gainwell because Gainwell was recruited as a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. All right.
Damn, I should have known that.
I was like, that's your man's. Come on.
I didn't know that.
I didn't put together. I was thinking like you might have been going in order of like, okay, Chase. Now we might go to like Devonta Smith or somebody. And I'm like, and we already talked about Tony, so I didn't think we'd go right back to him. But then I was like, wait.
You were oversaturated on Tony.
Yeah, I was like, wait, he played quarterback.
Yeah, he won't go back to Tony again. No.
Right.
I should have known that.
Yeah, when they expect you to zag. That's all. But really, like, I found an article where, like, right after his spring game, they were like, this is going to be the next Tim Tebow here.
They didn't know what to do with him at Florida.
They didn't use him as a receiver for his first 3 years at Florida. Like they
had no clue.
What to do. Which is why a lot of people are pointed like, oh, his breakout age and stuff, and like, but once they used him as a receiver, he was really good.
Context.
Okay, this is another wide receiver. Of all our pool of ADP registering candidates here, no one in their career had a longer reception than this wide receiver. 96 yards.
I feel like this is a trick question. I'm going to go with Rondale Moore.
It's definitely a trick question.
Waddle would be the chalk, so I'm not going there.
I'm going Rondale Moore.
Not more.
Oh.
This one's going to be a surprise.
Yeah, I was going to say because you kept emphasizing among all players with it.
Yep.
All right.
No, like this is a name. Like this is somebody who's going to get like day 1 or 2 capital, most likely. I hope he does.
Man.
I'll go Diami Brown.
That's for the name I was gonna go next. Yeah.
Those are great guesses. Okay.
And we're probably wrong.
No, wrong. I'll give you another stat about this guy. Took the SATs in 3 different languages.
3 different languages. Wow.
Amon-Ra.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, because he's got that background.
I think like his family, like everybody speaks like multiple different or fluent in multiple different languages.
But with his 40-yard time, you wouldn't think like this is the guy that had the longest reception.
No, you wouldn't. And do you know what year that happened in, Cal? Because I'm kind of curious. Like, would have been his?
I don't.
The year, one of the years he was used exclusively. I want to say it was like his freshman or his first season. He was exclusively out of the slot. If I'm pegging a year, it's probably that year because that was his most electric year. But
yeah, he ran a lot of like seam routes and stuff like that.
A lot of slants, a lot of outs. Yeah.
My guess is it was on one of those, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think Amon-Ra, I know we've talked a little bit about him, but Derek, you don't like him as much as you like Tony, do you?
I think it's going to come down. They're in the same tier for me, actually. Tony, you can only bump him so low based off of like the draft capital he's probably going to get, and Amon-Ra, it really depends on landing spot. Like Adam is obviously higher on him than me. Now I put his range of outcomes a little bit wider. the guy that I comped him to, and some of this is physical, but some of this is tactician. If he's able to show that he can win on the outside, I put him as like your 5% outcome is Jarvis Landry, which is really, really good. That's fantastic for fantasy purposes for us, as well as volume and stuff. I'm a little bit lower on him, but they're the same tier for me. I kind of view them in different buckets based off of draft capital, upside, and stuff like that. At least as of right now, we don't have landing spots and stuff.
I'm assuming the 3 languages were German, French, and English.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
I should have known that too. I suck. I didn't, dude. You're killing it because you went to these guys early and are going back to them, not expecting.
He snuck back around, and Adam's like, my brain's already saturated with it. He's not going to go there. And we mentioned in the DMs like 5 times about talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Right. He's not going to go there. He's not. Yeah. He went there.
All right, one more wide receiver. This guy's talked about like very highly. So, this is a guy that's going to go early in our rookie drafts. Of all of them, though, the lowest average yards per reception.
Lowest average yards per reception.
I mean, are you talking about ADOT? Or are you talking about?
I know Devontae Smith is used on screens a ton, but I also feel like.
I'm just going to go Rondale Moore.
Rondale Moore, yep.
Rondale Moore was not used vertically, so that's a good call.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that something that we should be concerned about with him?
I think it's more system.
I think it was also more system because Purdue, they schemed him the ball in easy ways so he can make plays.
The quarterback play was terrible too. Absolutely terrible. There's a reason why Jamie Newman's not talked about in the top. It's because he's not. He's not very good. So I mean, I think a lot of that was system. I think that was a lot of just trying to maximize and utilize their best player. But I mean, Adam and I talked about this in the podcast. Like, I like Rondale Moore, and just because we didn't see a ton of it doesn't mean that he can't. If you look over his entire collegiate career when he was targeted deep, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I mean, it was either above a 101 or above a 110 passer rating on targets 20 yards or more down the field. So really small sample size, but when he was asked to do it, you saw his ability to win off the line with speed, his footwork, and his ability as a route technician when he was asked to do it. So I lean on the side that there's more to his game than Purdue allowed him to show.
Yeah, it seems like the kind of guy that, it like you said, like the fit and whatever system he's going to be in could be like just a huge surprise. Like he could end up being the guy that goes from this lowest average yards per reception to being something much better, depending on if he lands in the right system. I hope he gets the draft capital to be given those opportunities. And he's like, when I look at mock drafts, he just doesn't seem to be going as high as some of these other guys.
We talked about it on the podcast. Adam and I discussed, like with Pat Crane, our favorite landing spots. I mean, I said the Saints because I think Peyton could look at him and see the exact same utilization because, I mean, come on, Cal, you know this, man. Like, what did they do with Brandon Cooks his first 2 or 3 years in the NFL? It was a lot of design screens. It was a lot of stuff like, here, catch it in space and run, baby. And that's why you saw these blow up. Now Brandon Cooks has evolved into a much more well-rounded player throughout his career, but that's not how it started for Brandon Cooks. Adam, we talked about the Buffalo Bills and him being the long-term backup in the slot for Cole Beasley, or the long-term slot wide receiver. You get Dayball using him out of the slot and how creative he could be, and he could be utilized in a lot of different ways that they use Isaiah McKenzie from the jump. Those are both really fantastic landing spots. They offer him ceiling and a floor this year and usage.
Yeah.
All right. No, go ahead, Adam. What you got?
I was just going to say, like, it wouldn't be as exciting for Rondale if the Bills drafted him this year, but down the line with Beasley's contract situation, Sanders is on a 1-year deal. I don't think they're going to go receiver. They're probably going to go whoever is the best player there between corner, edge, or guard. But, yeah, I agree, though. Like, Rondale, to me, isn't a player that can't win deep. It's just he was clearly their best player. As soon as he hit the field at Purdue, like he was the alpha on that offense. So like, all right, where's Rondale Moore? Let's get him the football and let him make plays.
Yep.
Could he be a replacement for like a Curtis Samuel in Carolina? Like, is that something that he could potentially fit into that kind of role?
If he, I don't think he's going to go in the first round. I think he's.
Well, the problem is they gave away their second round
Right,
pick in the trade for Darnold. So
That's
where we
true.
probably would have put him in the second round, they're not going to have a selection unless they kind of fork up and get up into that spot.
Yeah.
But the Jets always make some sense too. He's going to feel like the Deebo Samuel role, and they're going to play yards after the catch. And looking at early first or early second round teams, the Jets could be a really sneaky spot too. And people are like, well, I mean, Jamison Crowder's there. Jamison Crowder could be cut, and they could save $10 million against the cap at any moment. So,
of course, Urban Meyer likes that kind of wide receiver too, but that would mess up Marvin Jones. So we can't have that.
No, we got Visca
And it
in the
would mess
slot,
up
baby.
Visca.
Nah, we got Visca. Visca's in the slot this year. Don't poo-poo that, Cal. Don't do that. Don't do that. We need Visca in the slot. I need that for my
I
life.
can't wait to draft Marvin Jones in the 10th round again and have him score 9 touchdowns. It's gonna be great.
Oh, it's gonna be beautiful.
How many of them in one game though?
3.
He'll have a couple 3 touchdown games. Depends if they play Minnesota. Does Jacksonville play Minnesota this year? Or Green Bay?
I gotta go check the schedule. I gotta go check that's true stats.
It's true.
Okay, last one. This is a tight end. And really, I just want to talk about this guy. I want to hear your thoughts on him. This isn't a tremendous stat or anything, but he did have the most career receptions of all the tight ends that are getting an ADP at DLF.
So Debro and I are starting the tight ends after Kyle Pitts at the end of the week. So this is gonna be interesting. I'm gonna go with Brevin Jordan.
Brevin Jordan. That's it.
Yeah, I was like, we're late into the tight end class. I think we were going to break them down either later this week or next week on the podcast. So that is outside of Kyle Pitts. I wrote up Freiermuth too. Outside of those top 2 guys, I haven't dug into them yet. So I was going to lean on Adam here, but yeah, Brevin Jordan. Adam, you could talk about this more than I can. What did you see out of him? I know at least from what I've heard, the analytics are great for him.
Yeah, like it's so interesting with these secondary tight ends in this class because like Kyle Pitts is this like incredibly elite prospect that we are in love with, but like these tight ends are good. Like Brevin Jordan is not slow at all. He's very fast. Breaks a lot of tackles. Like he's got a little bit of like a Jonnu Smith type game to him. I think he's going to be a player that like there's teams that were like, what if the Chargers take him, right? Like, and he, after the season, or maybe even some point this season, becomes their new starting tight end. Jared Cook is like 36 years old. I don't think Donald Parham's going to really be a thing. Like,
no,
he is really interesting. The difference between Brevin Jordan and like Kyle Pitts, for instance, and there's obviously Kyle Pitts is the elite, but like Brevin Jordan's not exactly the best, like go up and get it tight end, but he's a guy that would fit in a really good, like a San Francisco scheme, a Tennessee scheme. Tennessee might maybe want to upgrade at tight end now that Jonnu's gone, and they know that would be a perfect fit. So I can't wait to watch more Brevin Jordan. I'm actually really interested to see where him and Freiermuth land. I think Pat Freiermuth, I've mocked it every time I do like one of the mock draft simulators. I think he's going the first pick in the second round to Jacksonville. Makes all the sense in the world to me. But,
I love that.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome for him.
Now, I'm a little afraid if he does that, he's going to turn into like a Mercedes Lewis and block too much and not be as useful for fantasy. That's my only. But Brevin Jordan, I don't like he's not that kind of a blocker. Not that he can't block, but he's just not like it. So I sort of feel like he'll get more use. I'm kind of leading towards him over Freiermuth, even though Freiermuth is awesome to watch. Like and you're right there. He's from your state, right, Adam?
Yeah, Penn State.
Yeah, he's fun.
I like Freiermuth. I like Freiermuth, but the thing with Freiermuth is I feel like he's been discussed a little bit. Like I don't think that his athletic ceiling is as high.
It's like a Hunter Henry.
Well, I mean, my comp for him was Zach Ertz, or at least what we would hope for the upper range of his outcomes and usage. As far as being a high volume guy, but I don't see him as far as like this athletic marvel. Like I don't think that is he a more polished and well-rounded player and better NFL prospect than say Mike Gesicki was coming out? Yes, because Gesicki can't block. But in NFL terms, I think that Freiermuth is probably going to be a little bit better NFL player unless he walks into just a barren system where he's going to be able to soak up target share early and kind of cement himself, kind of like an Ertz where basically everything else around him just dies and he's going to get target share in that aspect. But past that, like, I don't know if Freiermuth is going to be as sexy of an option for fantasy or carry high enough a ceiling. Like, I could see him he could be a perennial like 10 to 12 kind of guy for tight ends every year.
He's not Gronk, and we should stop comparing people to Gronk. And I've seen way too much of that. And
He's not Gronk.
Yeah, stop it.
No.
Last thing, and I'm going to let you guys go. This is from Bob. Derek.
Oh, he's not.
No!
Julian Edelman is a Hall of Famer.
No, Bob. He is not a Hall of Famer. No.
Listen, I don't have a problem if we put him in, but that means we're putting in Colston. We're putting in...
Yep. Hines Ward. Hines Ward needs to be... I mean, Hines Ward should have been on first ballot. If Julian Edelman makes it, Hines Ward should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Just straight up. Like, if Hines can't get enough love, Julian Edelman don't deserve it either. I'm just going to throw it out there.
David Tyree made a great catch. I mean, maybe we put him. He had a great playoff moment.
Gosh, man.
Maybe we put him in.
Look, I found out from my Twitter mentions today. After I just threw out a sarcastic
Super Bowl. Get your main.
After I threw out a sarcastic tweet, I found out that like basically, if you're a Pats fan, you believe that Julian Edelman is the bee's knees and he should be a Hall of Famer. And if you're not wrapped up in Pats fandom, then you're with everybody else and you think that he was. It's the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of really, really good. So you know. And I love Julian. I love him. He was an extremely good player. Bob, we talked about this on Clubhouse. Should he have his number retired by the Patriots? Yes.
Yeah.
Should he be in their Ring of Honor? Yes.
Definitely.
Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? No.
He's not even the best version of Julian Edelman that team had in the same era.
Hi, Will Spelker. Hi.
Yeah. Welker was better. So yeah, if we're gonna put him in, we gotta put Welker.
And now enters the playoff conversation because I know we're gonna get comments about that. But what he did in the playoffs,
Wes Welker was like definitively better, like by a lot.
Yeah, was Julian clutch in the playoffs? Yes, and I just don't like the narrative. Well, if you can't tell the story about the NFL with X player, then he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. You just made the case for Tom Brady, not Julian Edelman. So
It's
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
I don't not like the Patriots or anything. By the way, not at
all. No bias for Adam at all. Yeah.
The Bills. Yeah, the Bills guy. No way.
Not at all.
No, I don't like the Patriots either. But I think nobody likes the Patriots. Sorry, Bob. Nobody likes the Patriots.
I mean, I don't dislike them. I mean, I like Tom Brady. I actually like Tom Brady a lot more right now than I did when he was on the Patriots. Maybe it's because he got off the Patriots, or maybe we just didn't see.
Your question.
Yeah, I was like, that could have been, or maybe I just love lit drunk Tom Brady. What can I say?
That was amazing.
That was amazing.
It was awesome.
All right, well, guys, this was a blast. I had a lot of fun. Just one last time, just start with you, Adam. Like, what are you working on? Like, we got an off season, that quote unquote off season. There really is no off season, but like, what kind of work are you producing? What are you doing? Like, as we lead up to the draft, and then after, what are you planning?
Yeah, so at FTN Fantasy, we've been Derek, myself, a bunch of other analysts for the site, been doing a bunch of player profile series for the draft. They're all up. And then we're doing the podcast multiple times a week, doing prospect breakdowns. We just did a rookie mock draft with. Pat Crane have established the run. So we're doing a bunch of stuff on the pod. And then I'm also doing basketball content because I'm insane. So, that's pretty much what I'm doing right now. I'll be writing about basketball the second we get off this. So, yeah, it was fun, though. I appreciate you having us. Great time.
Is Zion going to be able to make the playoffs at any point in his career?
I hope so because he is unbelievable. Debro, I know you don't want to.
I don't know these fictitious sports you're talking about right now. Yeah. Nah.
Awesome.
Derek, what about you? How can people support you if they want to find you?
Basketball, New Orleans basketball has been dead to me since Chris Paul left. But no, dude, yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @Debro_FFB. You can find all my content spread across FTN, daily, fantasy, bets, all those kind of good spots. I mean, we're rocking the podcast 4 to 5 times a week. As we get closer to the season, I mean, we're going through prospects right now. We're covering a ton of best ball content. and how to really attack that. So I've got multiple articles up on FTN Daily, which are all free right now, discussing how to attack rookies, what that looks like, favorite value stacks, all this early stuff. Because if you're drafting these tournaments on Underdog and you're trying to capitalize on a lot of these ADPs, now's the time to do it, man, before these guys get landing spots, all these ADPs go through the roof. Plus, I mean, all the draft prospect stuff for FTN Fantasy. We're going to have a ton of stuff for the NFL draft specifically coming up. Now, I know we just went live with our full access package for all 3 different sites, betting, all that kind of good stuff. But that's really all the things, man. I'm going to be ponying up. I don't want to really, like, with some other publications, I don't want to announce that right now, that I've done previously. So teasing that a little bit. But I'm going to let somebody else announce that. But I've been involved with that in previous seasons. So that's coming up, working on that outside of FTN as well.
Well, I really mean this. Like, I truly enjoy your podcast. You guys have a great chemistry. Like, I love listening to you. You bring really good knowledge. It's very entertaining. Like, it's hard to get a lot of people who do both. And you guys can definitely bring the entertainment and the knowledge. And it's really, if anyone listening is not already subscribed, go subscribe. Give them a 5-star rating on Apple. That would really help them, help support them. And so please do that. So also, if you're watching this, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Hit the notifications so you never miss anything. Obviously, Addison does a lot of great work here as well. You want to make sure you're keeping up with all of the great people that are here at Dynasty League Football. Like I said, make sure you're subscribed to your premium subscription. It's absolutely worth it. Go do that. Hit the like button. Give us the comments. Tell us where you disagreed with us. Tell us, how many you got right, whatever it is. Give us some of that interaction that really helps us as well. So for Derek, for Adam, for the tennis world and Rafael Nadal, we appreciate you joining us and tuning in, and we will see you